Well, a couple things. Number one, he's a great player. I think one of the best guys in the conference at his position. So there's that element of it. Two, he's a great leader, and he makes other people better. When you get players like that, and they're not common where you have a guy, he's a great player, but then when he's there, he makes everyone else better. Sometimes guys just kind of do their own thing, but he's a leader. He's a communicator. He helps us with his football IQ. Like if we had like Madden, his like Madden awareness rating would be like in the high 90s. So you take that guy and you put him back out on the field, and it was kind of interesting because we got a young linebacker group. He's doing his thing in training camp. He gets hurt, and now it becomes younger, and then those guys get the leadership and the communication piece thrust on them, and there was kind of a void. The cool thing I found is like now those guys have been working for a couple months and working and working and getting better and becoming more comfortable with their voice. And then you take Cody and you inject them back in, and it was like it was different because those guys had grown a little bit, and it was better, And so it was good to see. It was good to have him back. Where I thought he played well. We limited his reps a little bit just because he hadn't played in a while, but it was good stuff.
How crucial was it to start fast, knowing that you got backed up in your own territory on those first two?
Yeah, I think it was. You talk about sudden change situations. It might be a big return. It might be a takeaway. Those types of situations when all of a sudden you're out there, and now their offense is in position to get points. Holding them to field goals was big. If you give up touchdowns there, it changes the whole complexion of the game. You hold them to field goals. Number one, it's still a one-score game. Two, I think there's a little bit of an element of frustration on their part because they weren't able to punch it in, and it kind of gave us an opportunity to get it in the end zone, and kind of from there kind of was able to move forward. So.
Goldmeyer leads the Big Ten in scrambles and converts a lot of first downs versus pressure. How important is pass rush, lane discipline, retracing?
Yeah, I mean, he's their leading rusher if you take away sacks. He creates a lot. Their offense goes through him. He's creating in the run game. He's creating in the pass game, the second play. I think he's a good player, man, and I think he's really athletic. He's got good speed. You think you have him, and then you don't. So it's something that obviously we're talking about, we're aware of. It's got to be something that's a focal point for those guys to rush with the integrity, keep the integrity of the lanes, because when he gets out, usually good things happen for them.
Is this your deepest defensive line room, or how would you characterize this 2023 D line so far?
It's deep. I think we've had some deep ones as well. I would say it's the most disruptive D line that we've had since I've been here. We've had some other ones that we've been able to roll 8-9 guys, but I don't know that the level of disruption's been at what this group has. So that's good to see, and they're gonna be big in this game. With the question that just got asked in terms of the rush lanes and being able to create pressure on the quarterback, they're going to be an important part of the game.
John was up here just before you saying that last year they were just running around. How much have you seen him become smarter?
Who was that?
Ja.
Ja. Yeah, yeah. Ja. He was a guy that came from Connecticut, and he was very raw, and he was very long, and he made a lot of plays, and he had a lot of the skill set that you kind of want in a pass rusher. But his just knowledge of the game and just awareness of situations and situational football was not at the level of his athleticism when he got here. And everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, and he's been working on that, and it's been important to him, and he's been learning, and he's been growing from that standpoint. And the fun thing is, like, as he's gotten that to improve, he's made more plays, and he still, to me, has a lot of room to grow. It's kind of exciting because he is disruptive. He is creating splash plays. That was obviously a huge play in the game last week, the strip fumble recovery. But I think he even has more there where, like, he could become a real force, true force. And today he had a really good day of practice, and he's just got to continue to work and put in the time. And if he does, I think he can be a special player.
For Darius and Aiden at that strong safety spot, what have been the teaching points to them of late?
Just everything from, fitting the run and run support, and making tackles in space to in coverage, understanding where your help is, and understanding is it zone, is it man, playing the fundamentals of man, playing the fundamentals of zone, eye discipline. One's in their second year, the other one's going into their third, but they're both relatively young players. So I like them as people. I like them as players. They're getting better each week. And again, cool thing with those guys is I think they got high upside, both of them. And they're working really hard to get to that. So, I think I've seen improvement from game one to where we stand now. And hopefully we can say that here over this next portion of games. So,
when Cody was out, how do you feel he dealt with any frustration that might have crept in, or did you keep it away?
I think there's natural frustration, but he handled it awesome. His leadership was great, during that time. And so, like, some guys when they're out, they just worry about themselves. He wasn't. He was still leading the group from the sidelines. He's got that, you see it. I think it's personality a little bit. It's how you handle things. There's people that hold people accountable, and there's people that do it in a way that creates resentment, and then there's people who do it in a way where if it like is received well, and it's like, oh man, I disappointed him. That's how Cody is. Like, he doesn't cause resentment with the players whenever he gets after someone. And a lot of times I feel like they feel like they let him down. Like, if Cody comes over to me and says I'm not doing something well enough, then man, I got to get it fixed. That's just his relationship with the guys, and that's just him as a person. So he led. I know he was frustrated. He wanted to get back. Like, he was killing it in the training room, and doing everything he needed and more. And it just took time. And but it was good to get him back. So.
How glad are you to see Chase Brown gone? And what are the teaching points when trying to teach your defense how to tackle 6'3", 250?
Well, I think you got to be aware of, different running styles each week. There's different running backs and different styles, and some guys are downhill guys, some guys are smaller guys, some guys are space guys. And what we do is we identify what each running back's strength and what each running back's weaknesses are, and then we kind of put a plan together on, the run game that we anticipate to see, and then also how to get them on the ground. And, those are things that we keep in our meeting room to kind of talk about with guys. But, there's always a plan based on who the running back is. As far as Chase, he's a special player. The best running backs, and we had one of them, Mo, and I think they were different, but they were similar in the standpoint that they could set up blocks. Like, they can make you be a better blocker just because of how they ran. And when a running back does that, those are the special ones, and he certainly was. So I'm glad he's the NFL's problem. So.
Yeah, Joe, how do you look at Newman's place among the best safeties in the country? The best D-backs.
Yeah, well, I don't see the other guys. I think he's the best safety in the country. Now, I don't see everyone, but I mean, the guy just makes plays constantly. He tackles well, he blitzes well, he covers well. He's got tremendous hands and ball skills, and then like he's at the highest levels of football IQ that I've been around. And we're fortunate here at Minnesota to be around a lot of guys like that. So, like, you go find me a guy that's a better package than him. I'm sure you'll find a faster guy. I'm sure you'll find a guy that's maybe got a little more twitch. I'm sure you'll find a guy that maybe he's at a logo school. But find me a guy who's got all of those things that he has. He doesn't really have a weakness. I felt that way about Antoine. Like, hey, what's his weakness? Well, he doesn't have a weakness. He does everything pretty well. He does it pretty good. So, I don't know.
You did younger players and transfers blending into the defense this year. How do you go about improving communication and getting everybody on the same page at all three levels?
We have a saying that every rep is a game rep. whether it's a summer walkthrough or whether it's a spring, practice or whatever it is, it's demand. You just got to demand it. And some of the demand is me blowing the whistle and say it's not loud enough. Some of the demand is me yelling above the music level, because I can usually do that, and they can usually hear me, but a lot of times they're not loud enough, and it comes with confidence too. It comes with being out there together, but it's just constant, making aware. Like the young guys always struggle with it. They all, just you take a guy like Coleman right now who's doing a great job with communication. This time last year, you could barely hear him. And you're always unsure because you don't want to say the wrong thing. Like yesterday, I pointed him out in practice because he was like being proactive. Like the good safeties, hey, if this motion happens, this is what we're going to. Hey, alert this. They do it beforehand. They've already thought about it. When the young guys, they attempt to react to it, and it's not the way that it needs to be. So it's not easy, but it's demanded of. It's just constantly talked about. So.
Yeah, Coach, just like how many football you guys talk about a lot, how dominant the offensive line has been, just the amount of rushes and how they just kind of dominated that defensive line.
Yeah.
Speak to how impactful it is to have like an offensive line like the Gophers have.
Yeah, the less time on the field, the less plays you get, the less opportunities to give up points, the more rested you are. So whenever you're able to run the football as an offense, the defense always likes that, So being able to control the clock, being able to grind it out, being able to move the chains, that's defense's best friend. So I think that's the good part of it. The other good part of it is when you have a physical line, I think it helps your D-line, because when you guys go against each other in training camp or in spring ball, being able to go against a physical offensive line helps kind of sharpen you as a defensive line. So,
All right. Thanks, Coach.
thanks. See ya. Like your shoes.
First half last week.
Getting better, just overall, week by week. Just understanding the game plan, understanding why we're calling what we're calling, knowing where to go with the football. That was a very good half from him. The second half, we got to play better, but he put it together in the first half, and I think it helped a lot of things in the second half just with running the football. And if he can know where to go with the football and understand why we're making that play call, his talents will continue to shine.
You don't have any points in your opening possession so far. I think 4 punts and 4 turnovers. So if that's going to change this week, especially with Johnny Newton out for that first half, what has to click?
It comes down to executions. Starting fast is the first thing that we preach, and it comes down to execution. You go through every game with our opening drives, and Nebraska, we had easy completions early. Eastern Michigan, we ran the ball extremely effectively. Didn't end up punching it in against Eastern Michigan. North Carolina went right down the field, turned the football over inside the red zone. Northwestern, I believe we went 3 and out. And then we weren't able to run the ball effectively early in that game. Louisiana, the same thing. Like, it took us a minute to figure things out. We had a short yardage schematical problem on third down that we adjusted after that first one. And then you go into the last part of it against Michigan and Iowa. Those two defenses are extremely elite, and it took us, I think the thing that we have to look at is we have to, number one, we have to run the ball effectively early in the game. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think, easy completions early in the game, number one, because the last 2 games, the first play of the game against Iowa, we looked to take a shot. It was incomplete. It was 2nd and 10. The next play, we get to 2nd and 6. Then we have the offsides on 3rd and 6, which then puts us into a 3rd and 11 situation. That's what started to kill us there. When you're in 3rd and 11, it's hard to convert. Then against Michigan State, we turned the ball over. Michigan, we turned the ball over on the first drive. So it's a little bit of execution. It's a little bit of me continuing to get 8th and easy completions early. And then it's the third piece of it is the self-inflicted wounds. If we put all those things to bed and we handle those, I think we'll have more success in those opening drives. But that's what it comes down to. As I continue to look at it, we do as a staff. We look at what teams are doing in the opening drives. We look at what we're doing in the opening drives and do our best to put together the best, opening plays that we possibly can. It comes down to those three things.
Greg, if you're on the recruiting trail, you're talking about how the Gophers run the football. What are the hallmarks? What are the benchmarks that you're describing?
Well, I mean, I had to do that when I was recruiting tight ends. And with recruiting offensive linemen and tight ends and running backs, that's what wins you football games. You have to be able, especially in this league, as you get into this month, you have to be able to run the football because you never know what the elements are going to be. That's the first thing. The second thing is the best way to be able to put teams away and to establish that physicality, that mentality that we want to have is running the football. I want to be able to throw the ball very effectively. I want to be able to be explosive. I want to be able to create those chunk plays. But at the end of the day, the game is going to be won up front. And when we're telling guys in recruiting, I would always tell the tight end, the number one thing that we're going to look for in a tight end is they're going to have to be able to run block. That's the number one thing because that's our mentality, that's our identity, that's what we want to be. But we also look at it too, where we want to be explosive and we want to create chunk plays. But that's what we've always said. That's what Callie always says to the offensive linemen. That's our mentality. That's what we want to do, and that's what we've said with running backs. It's been cool to see just the different group of running backs coming in, and I think that's going to help within the recruiting process as well with those guys.
You can see a 40-carry, 200-yard game out of Jordan.
Did I see that? I did say I wasn't going to change how the offense was run. So I think JoJo did a fantastic job of just executing the game plan. He was waiting for his moment. It was so cool to see. I think it set up really well for him too. The way the game plan was, I knew back in training camp, and I would always say to Nick, he's an exceptional outside zone runner. He's very good staying on his track. He's detailed with his eyes, and then his pace. He's very, very good. And I didn't know how the game was going to play out because we had a couple different schemes that we had for Michigan State. But it turned out that the outside zone play was really going, and that set up really well for JoJo. But it didn't hit me until the end of the game that I looked down. He had 40 carries for 204. He was just a workhorse. He was just working, and the line did a great job. The tight ends did a great job, and it was a full team effort. But JoJo did it. It was cool to see.
How much have you learned about the intricacies of run game schemes over in Cali?
So I think the best thing that happened to me in my career was being the tight end coach. Because I always understood what was going on up front. I could draw it on the board. I could do all that. But it was hearing the calls, hearing the different things, the combination blocks, working with the tackles, working with Callie. That was integral in my development just from a run game perspective. The next piece of it was understanding why we're running those things into those certain fronts, those certain pressures. And that's what I got, honestly, a lot from Kirk. Sitting with Kirk and being able to see, all right, this is why we want to run this play into this. So I could see those different types of things. I think understanding how teams are fitting things during the game, that's what one of my biggest things that I've had to grow with throughout the first, 8 games is I'm not necessarily always just looking at one thing. I'm looking at a certain thing in the box to be able to see, all right, how are they fitting that? What run do we need to get to? And then gathering information from other people. That's been integral in that piece. But coaching the tight ends was a huge piece of that just because I had to understand why they were doing what they were doing and the fundamentals of it.
How do zone schemes and gap schemes complement each other?
So, the one thing with a zone scheme and a gap scheme is if it's on the front, gap scheme usually, it looks like it could be the same type of block front side versus back side. So if there's an outside zone block, when there's a deuce combination between the tackle and the guard, that can look very much like a backside cutoff to outside zone. Plays off the same way. The next piece of it is, they really don't know based off of that first step on what they're getting. We have a number of different schemes where the linebackers on the defense have to be able to see, all right, what's the track of the back, maybe what's the track of the offensive line. I think that's what it plays off a lot of, and that's why the gap scheme I think hasn't been. I would say the gap scheme has been great for us this year, but it's been a good piece that's been able to be a little bit of a change up for us. The outside zone's been good because we've just continued to grow on our past experiences from it. Coach Callahan does an awesome job of teaching that play just from the people that he's learned it from and just the overall understanding whether it's either gun or under center. But I think that it plays a huge part on the first step of the offensive line, how the D-line has to play that, and how the linebackers have to fit it based off the line in the back.
Can you speak to that mentality and the physicality of this offensive line? It's just like only one completed pass second half, but able to lean on them and score multiple times against that defense.
It's what's expected of them. It's what's demanded of them. The mentality. We always say that we don't know. We're going to do whatever we can to win. Number one, if we have to throw the ball a number of times, like we did in the second half against Iowa, I felt like we had to throw the ball a little bit more in the second half. In that situation, I got into the last part of the game. I think it was 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and I just realized that they were having trouble fitting the outside zone. So we just kept doing different things within that. The line didn't know that was going on. They're just asked to block the run scheme and do it at a high level, and they did it. I think that's what just Callie instills in them every single day in their meeting. Physicality, the how, execution, just that energy that we want to put into every single play.
What stands out about Illinois?
Number one, their D-line is tough. It's physical. It's twitchy. They're very similar to what they were last year within the scheme. They do a great job in the secondary of disguising their coverages. They show up in one particular coverage the entire time, and then they'll run the different things. So they do a good job of disguising that. They present different challenges because they're three down front. So they do a little bit of different, whether they play with a 4-eye inside shade of the tackle or they play with a 3 technique, which is outside shade of the guard. They do different things in that way where they can present different challenges, different things within the run scheme that we've had to practice. But going against teams like Michigan, teams like Iowa, we've been seeing more of a 4-down front. Michigan State, the same thing. So those are the different challenges they present, and obviously we've had a week to be able to get ready for it. But they do a good job of disguising. Ethan's going to have to really be able to recognize things pre-snap and post-snap. It's not going to be as simple as, hey, you're going to get this guy in this location here and this is going to happen. He might run to a certain spot. He might do something a little bit different. So Ethan's been working really hard on that all week.
Got time for 2 more for Coach?
Greg, what did you like about that last drive right before halftime, being able to execute so well in that late half situation?
I was proud of the guys because we really weren't in a 2-minute drive. If you notice, we were running our offense, and I think the cool thing was the first play of the drive was just an RPO, and Ethan made the correct read, ended up getting us out of backed up, and then we started rolling, and we hit a couple play actions, and then we found ourselves across the 50, and we made a huge step in going down and scoring, especially on the third down, and. Again, I can't preach enough about Daniel Jackson. That play that he scored on, it wasn't the exact coverage that we wanted, and it was on third down, and we needed to be able to run it. I thought the clock management situation of Coach Flechter, and that was awesome, being able to let the clock run down, managing that whole situation. And my favorite play, you talk about just because we did have to throw the ball in that drive. My most encouraging play of the day was the 2nd and 18 with Brevin. We got into that. And it was 2nd and 18. We took a sack on 1st and 10. We were off schedule, and that showed what the offense can be. And I thought that was really cool to see because, Brev ended up going right down the middle of the field. He was one-on-one with the mic, and Ethan threw a great ball. It was great protection. And that's what I think our offense can be. I think that's what we're continuing to grow towards. It was just encouraging to see that we were in an off-schedule situation, which I've continued to say. That's been our Achilles heel for the most part, is being off-schedule on 1st and 2nd down and then converting, not necessarily converting on 3rd down, but converting on 2nd and long. So I wanted to be able to say that because I was excited to see Brevin make a play too, down the field in an explosive pass play.
Speaking of Brian, what did you see from Greg Johnson against Michigan State?
He's learning. He's continuing to get better. He's a true freshman playing in the Big Ten. A year ago he was playing high school football in the state of Minnesota, and I think everyone should be proud of him with how he's handled this situation. But it's challenging at times. You're going up against high school defensive linemen, and then all of a sudden you're going up against Michigan State D linemen, Iowa D linemen, and we've joked around where he's like, man, these guys in the Big Ten, they're big. And I agree, they are big, but you're here for a reason too, and he's going to be a great player. He's continuing to get better every single day. He's focused on, those little small details, whether it's in a walkthrough period or it's a full speed practice period. And I couldn't be more proud of the way he's handled the situation. He's mentally, physically, he's just going through it, but he's challenging himself every day and taking the coaching.
One that kind of what it was?
It was essentially we planned. We didn't practice it into that look, and I think Coach Simon talked to him about if we got a man look, he was going to have a certain type of reaction. Daniel made a play. Sometimes the front and the box was a funny look too, and it was funny because we were all like, "Ooh, run it, let's do it." And sometimes you got to let players play, and I think that's the cool thing about our guys is they're growing up. They're continuing to get better. It's been a long process through the first 8 games, and I think that's what you've seen throughout the first 8 games is every single practice, every single game, you've seen growth from these guys. And I couldn't be more proud of the way that they're handling it and the position we're in. And we're just looking to go 1-0 this week.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.